Hello, my name is Simon Dale. I'm the Managing Director of Adobe in Southeast Asia, and I'm joined today by Dr. Rana Kaliouby, co-founder and CEO of Affectiva, to explore why empathy is a new customer experience differentiator and how leaders can harness customer insights to create more meaningful connections.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for inviting me.
Rana, you founded a company based on artificial emotional intelligence. Why do you think empathy is so important when we're talking about customer experience?
So empathy sits at the core of how we connect and communicate with one another. It influences how we build trust and loyalty and camaraderie. So it really is important in how we build, customer experiences and this emotional connection with our users and consumers. So I've been on this mission to humanize technology by building and bringing emotional intelligence to our machines. And it's all about, if you look at how we connect and communicate with one another, only 10% is in the actual choice of words we use. 90% is nonverbal, and it's split between your facial expressions, your body posture and gestures, and your vocal intonations. And today, when we're connecting online and digitally, a lot of that is lost in cyberspace. So we use machine learning, computer vision, and a lot of data to quantify the emotional experience a person has when they are interacting with products, brands, services, and content.
Yeah, and that's super important. I know that we did the Adobe Digital Trends report this year, and one of the findings was that just 1 out of 5 companies say that they have significant insight into their customers' mindset or the friction points in the customer journey. So I can see how applying this to this world could be really useful for our customers. How do you think that the leaders that we've got in the audience today can better leverage empathy to guide their customer experience? And maybe you could give us a few examples from what you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. So especially over the past year with the pandemic, we're seeing a rise of what I'm calling the empathy economy. So organizations that are able to approach their key stakeholders, be it their employees, their customers, their investors, their partners, with empathy, are going to generate a lot more, economic growth and opportunities. And it's easy to do that when you're a small organization. It's really hard to scale empathy. And this is where technology like ours, this is where emotion AI can come into play, because now you can quantify, instead of asking a customer at the end of their experience, oh, how did you feel about that? On a scale from 1 to 5, would you buy this product? Well, now you can actually see moment by moment their emotional experience. You can see those friction points. And it's often a lead indicator to actions like quitting an experience, right? You can start to see the frustration build up over time. And that's an opportunity for you as an organization to intervene in real time. And that can be very powerful.
Would you have any examples from industries around the world that you've worked with where this has really had an impact?
So we work with 28% of the Fortune Global 500 companies, and our technology is in use in 90 countries around the world, where organizations use the data we generate, right, this moment by moment emotional experience to make really key decisions around media spend. So if if you have a holiday ad and you want to know where exactly to place it and who's the target audience, you can use our technology to quantify that in a way that's not been possible before. We have organizations that use our technology to, again, map out that customer experience journey. And you often map it out and superimpose the emotional journey on top of it. And again, you can see when you delight the customer, you can see where there are frustration points. And you can do that at scale because everybody has a camera on their device. We are sticklers for privacy. And so everything we do is on an opt-in basis. So we have to consent people before they turn on their camera, and we ask for their permission to do so. And I think that's really important. But it's an opportunity to capture that subconscious visceral response to an experience or a product, which taps into a different part of the brain than asking people about it.
Yeah, and look, I think it's a great way of looking at a new dimension of adding value to the customer experience and the understanding of the customer, which is all part of the approach to empathy. You've mentioned data in this, and as much as this is a conversation about AI needing data, it's also a culture one. How important do you think is culture in driving more empathy into the customer experience?
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right that it's a mindset. And again, I feel like the last year has really highlighted how leading with empathy, wherever you are in the organization, leading with empathy is really key, because that allows you to connect at a very human level. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. I mean, we're an AI company, and I've been in this space for over 20 years, but I always say it's not about the artificial part of this. It's about the human. Let's put the humans at the center of all of this and humanize how we build this technology and deploy it. That's one piece of it, but also, honestly, because it's such a data-driven universe, right? Acknowledging that this is very personal data, so prioritizing privacy, prioritizing diversity, so that you're the diversity of the data and the diversity of the team that's analyzing and building these solutions. That's really key, because that's how you avoid bias creeping into your solutions, which nobody wants, of course.
Yes, of course, and that's super important these days. And you are talking about really two dimensions in a business here. One is there's the application of technology, but it's also applying that to this world of the customer experience. And so in terms of executive roles, the CIO and the CMO really need to better collaborate to get this done. How do you think that these two worlds and these two kind of executive groups could better organize and collaborate between themselves to achieve this better outcome?
That's a great question, because it's a partnership, right? Like, the marketers and the content creators and the advertisers want these unique insights around the customer experience, but you need the CIO and that organization to implement the data stack, right? Everything from collecting the data, acquiring, cleansing it, pre-processing it, using it to train and build these predictive models, and making the data accessible. I talk about democratizing access to AI within organizations. You really want the CIO's organization to make this whole system accessible to anybody in the broader organization. I think it's a really important partnership.
Yeah, and we see that as well. Definitely, it's the more and more technology waves reach the customer and touch the customer, then it is a true partnership which needs to be established, and both sides need to be learning each other's domains to some extent. Other than that, making that work, what would you see would be some of the biggest barriers for organizations to be really insight driven and leverage their customer knowledge like this?
I mean, I think the biggest barrier is just a lot of misconceptions around AI, like a lot of these like grand goals around AI. You don't have to wait for that, right? Like, recognize that a lot of these AI solutions are out there in the market. They're very easily implementable. And there's low-hanging opportunities to bring these state-of-the-art technologies into your organization. I think that's really key. I think also recognizing that, yes, some or a lot of AI is about automation and productivity and efficiency. But this new wave of technology, this emerging field of emotion AI and human perception AI, is all about really quantifying at a really kind of, interesting, deep level, the emotional experience of your customers. And it's very new data and it's very state of the art, but it's out there and it's low hanging. You can actually implement it into your organization.
Yeah, and I think that's great messages to organizations that are just sort of thinking about really seriously, what does digital transformation mean for them, and particularly in the customer journey, and then adding empathy to that could sometimes confuse a little bit, maybe. Is there anything there that you would see to try and simplify for our audience as to how they could get really focused on applying all of this capability, but specifically to this topic of empathy in the customer experience?
What we found in working with these like really big organizations, right? We're a small startup, is that start with a proof of concept. Just demonstrate the value. There's nothing better than a real show and tell where you can, take an example from your, a real customer experience, or maybe a video content that you have, and conduct a proof of concept and be able to show this new data and the new insights you can yield from it. That's one. The second is, in my experience, you really need an internal champion and sponsor to implement these new technologies. And so making sure that this person is empowered within an organization to go explore these new technologies and bring them back to the rest of the team and align the various stakeholders, I think that's really key. And you need to be committed to this exploration/innovation mindset.
Yeah, and I think that is a really strong point that I'd like to reinforce to our audience, right? Is first of all, get started, right? But have that commitment to drive it through to a result, and even learn from first failures to carry on and repeat experiments and so on. But also to take a somewhat traditional approach to managing the change, right? This managing change hasn't changed much. So it still is a transformation, it's a change management, and that strong sponsorship with the engagement of the organization makes a difference. Well, Rana, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a really fascinating chat, and you've shared some great insights. And it's really helped our audience, I think, understand how they can inject empathy into their customer experience.
Thank you so much for having me, Simon.